All right, welcome to the Default Profitable Podcast. You're listening to the next episode. Today, we're going to focus on what it takes to start, run, and grow a creative business. We'll hear some stories, some successes, some failures from a real business owner. I'm your host, Matt Nettleton, and today my guest is Josh Brammer. Josh, welcome to the show.
Hey, man.
Good to have you. So I was thinking as I looked at my calendar, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got an interview today. We've probably known each other since 2006, 2007, when you were with SpinWeb.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, you have helped so many salespeople that have helped me be able to do my job over the years. So I appreciate you, Matt.
I appreciate that. Well, why don't we do this for people that are listening that haven't known you since 2007? Why don't you introduce yourself personally before we talk about your business?
Sure. I'm Josh Brammer. I've managed 4 marketing agencies, built and sold my last agency. And now I'm a retired marketer, retired youth pastor, and full-time business creation person. So I help people really get clear about what business they're building so that they can not make all the marketing mistakes I've watched for 15 plus years.
Oh, excellent. And now, are you originally from Indianapolis?
Originally from farmland, Indiana. Little
Beautiful
tiny town.
farmland.
Yeah, beautiful. I would tell people that when I went to Ball State, and when I would tell people at Ball State, I'm from farmland, they thought I was just talking about cornfields. It's like, no, it's a literal spot on the map. We're famous for being in a red gold tomato commercial back in the 90s. But yeah, went from there, migrated this way to Indianapolis, and currently live in Westfield.
Excellent. Excellent. So tell us what's the name of your current business?
Lantern is our business. We sold the agency side of the business, but kept the brand. And now we are a coaching and a product creation firm to help smart solopreneurs and agency founders, people who are doing creative work, but don't know how to sell the smart things that they talk about all day long.
That is, so Lorraine Ball, who we both know, her quote is, "You're never in the business you think you're in. You're in the business of selling the business you think you're in." So you're not in the marketing business, you're in the selling marketing business. And it would be nice if a lot of people remembered that.
Right.
So when did you sell the agency and get into this business?
2 years ago, we sold the agency right before ChatGPT hit. And it caused a lot of confusion because I was looking through your old podcast episodes, and I sold the agency because I was sick of marketing. And I didn't really have a plan of what I was going to do next. I was going to take time to figure it out. And I fell into that crazy trap of, well, AI is hitting the scene. What are we going to do with it? How can we use it? So it's been a fun and exploratory transition. So if you're going to build a business, make a plan for what you think you're going to do next, because really I went back to square one and accidentally restarted my consulting business. And it was painful. It was hard.
Why do you say that? What was hard about it?
What's hard is this has happened to me a couple different times, because usually what happens, I know you're a fan of the E-Myth, the book. Is it Michael Gerber? Is that his name?
Yep.
So in the E-Myth, the concept is people have this entrepreneurial brainstorm lightning moment, and it's really a seizure, but they think that it's inspiration.
Yes.
So you go out and you say, here's what usually happens. People say, I'm smart enough, I'm good enough, I can work hard enough, my network's good enough, I can do this better than so-and-so who is my boss who pays my payroll right now.
Yeah.
And really what happens is your ego gets a little bit too inflated, and you think that things are going to work out for you, and you don't really have a plan. You don't really have a target audience. You don't really have an offer or a product. You have a seizure where you think that money's just going to come to you because you're smart enough, good enough, hardworking enough, whatever the thing that you're telling yourself. In reality, if you don't know what problem you're solving and people aren't already trying to solve that problem desperately, you don't have a business. You have an idea. And ideas are a terrible way to hang your hat and sleep well at night. You can have great ideas. Ideas are a dime a dozen, but implementation and actually solving problems for people in a way that they want to talk about it, that's the key to having a successful business. When you solve a problem and your customer goes, thank you for solving that problem. Here's somebody else who has that problem. Then you have a business on your
Yeah.
hands.
Yeah. And by the way, thank you for solving the problem. Here's a check.
Right.
Here's
Yeah.
here's a check. Like it's not just intellectually stimulating, it's something they're willing to pay for.
Right. Yeah.
So you mentioned, you should probably have a plan when you start a business,
Yeah.
which has actually been something of a theme in the last 140 plus episodes. One of three things that people suggest that you really have is number one is a plan. So let's not talk about the plan that you had for Lantern when you went back to business coaching, but when you started your own agency, Lantern,
Yeah.
how much planning did you do before that?
One moment.
Yep.
So was your question how much planning before I sold
Before
the
you
agency?
started your agency originally.
Yeah. I planned for about 6 months before I started my agency. And it's a funny story because I didn't mean to start an agency. I was working full time. I was doing a turnaround at a previous agency. They'd been in business for 30 years. I was doing a lot of troubleshooting, problem solving strategy work with clients. And I left because I said, well, they're serving people in one way, and I knew a way that I could do it differently. And so I left and planned on becoming a consultant. I had frameworks, I had ideas, I had network, I was doing all the things. But here's what I missed. I got too smart for my own good. And I thought that having a framework and having a process, the proven process, I thought that that was going to just win the day. And what happened was I took that 6 months of planning, went out into the market, met with my network, and they said, Josh, we like you, but we don't know what you're going to do and why we need to pay you for it. I left with a plan and a framework and a process, but I didn't actually have a product. And as a consultant without a product, nobody knew how to pay me. People paid me if they liked me, but they didn't actually know what they were getting. And that doesn't last very long.
That's one of the things that you do that I can't do is you get people to like you. Um, so nobody's ever paid me because they like me. So
Right.
yeah, I would
It's
love that.
amazing how many people actually do mediocre or just good enough work, but they actually stay in business because they're likable, they're nice, and some people just need a job to be done. The challenge becomes if people don't like you enough and what you do feels obscure or feels not valuable, not necessary, then it's not going to stay in business, you know.
Right.
But yeah, that's a huge piece of the network.
Yeah. Yeah. So you built this for 6 months, and you seem to have hit the same part that 137 other people that I've interviewed is I had a plan. It just was completely inaccurate and
Correct.
useless.
Yeah.
But the planning process was pretty valuable. So I went back and rebuilt the plan. So it sounds
Right.
like, um, you showed up with a great plan. You had frameworks, you had what you were going to do. You just had no way to package it in a way that people would buy.
Right. Yeah, that's the piece that I found was the trend over the last 8 years, because it's been 8 years since I left and started my own company. We pivoted. It took 3 months to pivot from being a consultant to thinking about it and saying, you know what, we're going to go back to agency model. We're going to go back to agency services. And the reason I did it is I knew it was a product that I could sell. And so it gave me, 6 years of cash flow to figure out what I didn't know in those first 90 days. And then once I sold the agency, I said, now I can go back to the consulting and the coaching side of things. But it took me literally 6 years to sort out some of those challenges because, Matt, what it comes down to is people think they need a plan, but what you actually need is clarity. Clarity is strategy. And clarity comes down to what skills do you have? Who do you want to serve? And are they desperately seeking that type of connection, that type of solution? If you have a great idea, great software, whatever you're dreaming up, but people don't have a felt need to hand you cash to solve the problem, you do not have a business. And so many people skip the fundamental, what is the need? What do I solve for in business? Who am I solving it for? Because what we do, I found that founders will often say, the goal is money, the goal is revenue. I will take any client who has money as long as they're nice enough. And what they do is they spread themselves too thin. They try to be everything to everybody. This is why so many startups that I've seen, they flounder in their first 3 years because they're trying to take any cash they can get, and they're just building A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I'm like, people don't want your alphabet soup of features of ideas. People want a very specific, thing to solve for.
Yeah. I find that with most businesses, their number one sales struggle is figuring out how to say no to prospects.
Yeah. You have to know who you need to repel in order to stay in business.
Yeah. The opportunity cost of serving the people that you're saying yes to is like all the things that you could be really good at.
Right.
So,
yeah. And let me give you an example of that. One of the things that I found is in the last 8 years, I tried an angle, and the angle was, I'm going to help you niche. I'm going to help you pick your target audience. I'm going to help you get more focused, more profitable. That is so unsexy. Nobody wants to buy it. Like if I say, hey, do you want to serve less people more deeply? People go, that's a good idea, but no, thank you.
Yeah, none for me, thanks.
People don't actually want to choose.
Yeah.
Decisions are hard, especially choosing to not do 10 things so you can do the one thing. It's not something that feels natural in our culture. We're about more, we're about up and to the right, we're about growth, we're about bigger, better. We think that bigger, better growth. I actually have a sketch of a children's business book. I want to create a children's business book series that's for adults, but styled like kids' books. It's called Don't Feed the Growth Monster. Because what happens is you start a business, it's like you get this little pet, and he's a nice, cute little furry monster. And then suddenly you start feeding him random, projects. You start feeding him things. He gets bigger, 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 and hungry. And suddenly you go, well, now I've got a team. I've got 7 products. I've got all this stuff. What do I do? Well, I guess I need to hire sales. I guess I need to hire a sales coach. I guess I need to hire a marketing agency. And what you're doing is you're just building things that feed the growth monster. And the growth monster is never satisfied. He just gets hungrier and hungrier and hungrier. And that's how most small businesses are when they're trying to grow from, 1 to 10 million. And the answer is focus, but nobody wants to focus.
Right.
They just want to feed the growth monster.
Well, the growth monster is an omnivore. He'll eat anything.
Anything you give it.
Yeah. Functionally a goat. So you can feed him garbage. You can feed him license plates. You can feed him hamburgers. It doesn't matter.
Right.
So, yeah. So when you think back to, you start your agency, you've been in marketing for a long time. You've run 3 agencies before that. What were some of the things that you had to learn when you started your own agency that you didn't expect to need to know?
So one of the things that was interesting to me is my background, my education was in video editing. And what I realized is there are muscles in your brain that you are developing. No matter what your skill set is, there's this like muscle memory. So for instance, my video editing background gave me the ability to say, I take 6 hours of information, I turn it into 3 minutes. It's condensing, it's editing, it's omitting. And I learned that muscle because I had to. I would sit in a room and edit for 8 hours to get the 6 hours down to 3 minutes. And that was a skill that my coworkers didn't have. They would always say more, add more words, add more this, add more bullets, add more benefits to the proposal. And so I built very early that ability to say, we're going to tell the client, this is what I heard you say. This is why you need it. This is why you need it now. Here's the 2 reasons. Does that make sense to you? And so I found that I joined my agency to actually be a salesperson, and I had no skills in selling, but I had skills in storytelling and I had skills in empathy. Before I was in marketing, I was actually a youth pastor. And so as a youth pastor, one of the things I had to learn is you have to listen to people before they want to hear about like history and Jewish carpenters and all sorts of like getting a 7th grader to be interested in like a Jewish carpenter is like a pretty hard sell. But that skill set translated into the marketing more than all the data, all the charts, because it comes down to human connection and understanding people's motivation. That was what really lit up for me when I got into the marketing agency business. Is so many times people get too focused on the creative, too focused on having the best idea, and not on actually meeting customers exactly where they are and the problems they wake up with today. I was like, the empathy was the skill set, and then like omitting and editing down was that second piece. And when I brought those together, then the marketing that we'd create was so much more powerful.
Yeah, and again, it seems to be a little bit of a theme, which I like. It's not what you add, it's what you take away,
Hmm.
right? You don't need pyro in every video.
Right.
It's not necessary. You can slow down and just tell a decent story.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. So so you're kind of lighting up with that stuff. Were there any kind of gaps in your knowledge that surprised you?
I think one of the gaps that it showed up for me because of my background. I came through, kind of media production and the story side of business. I had to learn the financial side, and I had to learn, in order to be profitable, you have to know where the money's coming from and where the money's going. And it's very challenging. A lot of people who are in a business under, I'd say, 3 million, they spend out of ego or out of trying to solve, like they're trying to give their problems away by spending on software, spending on experts, spending on all these other things, when the real answer is decide to stop, decide to not add, decide to limit. So it comes down to that choice. But that's the piece of finance that I think a lot of people skip over. And so they just kind of view it as, hey, if I get a bunch of money in, then I can spend a bunch of money. One of the books that I recommend is called Profit First.
Oh,
And
love that. I was going to bring that up. That's a great book.
it's a super simple concept that people don't like. It says, hey, money comes in, you pay yourself, take the profit out, and then what's left gets spent.
And
Crazy idea, right? Don't
it's
spend all the money.
amazing. Yeah, it's amazing how quickly you can adjust what you're spending
Yeah.
when the money's not in the bank.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy. Crazy. So, all right. So, you've been, you know, how many years have you been on your own, self-employed between the agency and your new firm?
I'd
9?
say 9. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you've been around for 9 years, and much like, I've been around for a while. You get people that come to you and say, "Hey, listen, I'm thinking about leaving the big megacorp and
Yep.
I want to start my own thing." So when somebody says that to you, how do you what's the way that you look to handle that conversation with a friend?
So the way I look at it is, you'll hear the common advice of, uh, side hustle, don't quit your day job. I've heard that in a couple of the other episodes, but here's what I would say is the actual advice that people need. You need a focused, profitable side hustle. So many people do exploratory, they do a couple gigs, they get an idea, but what they're really doing is, sometimes I think about it as arts and crafts. They're testing their business idea as a hobby, and what they're not realizing is, if you can't actually make a chart and see where, hey, if I went and got 10 more of these customers and I actually make money off of these customers, this is how I replace my salary. This is how I build a business. And the big challenge for a lot of people when they're looking at starting a business, at least the people that I help, sometimes they're the expert. And so what happens is they have this mental gap between, well, I don't think my skills are good enough. I need to upskill. I need to up level. And they put themselves in the practitioner role. And what happens is they don't know how to start a business because they're the practitioner, they're the chief bottle washer, they're the sales department, they're the marketing department. And what happens is, because they don't know how to get those skills, they end up diluting everything and going, well, I've got this vague idea that if I sell a little bit of A and a little bit of B and a little bit of C, I got all this, it'll work out. But what you actually have to do is figure out what's the one thing you can sell and prove that you can go sell it 10 times, make sure it's profitable. And that is challenging for people because it's about limits. It's about focus. People would rather make a vague business plan and jump with a little bit of savings. But what happens is when you go out and do that, the desperation that comes across when you start to not have as much savings kills your sales. It kills your mojo and it kills your focus because your brain will naturally say, I will go do anything to make money. That's the biggest challenge I see with new businesses. They're basically trying to sell everything they can do instead of choosing the one thing they will do.
So I had a high school teacher who had a phrase that he liked to use what he was teaching us. And it was, if you want to succeed in the worst possible way, you will. And I think a lot of small business owners want to succeed in the worst possible way, and they do, right? So they are the practitioner. They go out and they do the thing, but they don't really have a system. They don't really have. It's not a scalable hobby.
Right.
It's a hobby, and they can get some money for it, but they can't get enough money to actually build a business. And so I think that really kind of, you. So the three things that a lot of people have talked about: one, you have to have a plan, a strategy. Two, you have to have 6 months savings, and three, you have to have working financial literacy.
Mhm.
And in 135 episodes, I don't think I've had anybody that's even hit 2 out of 3, much less 3 out of 3.
Right.
So it's really, starting a business isn't for everybody, you know, but it can be.
Yeah.
So
Well, and it becomes easier the more you focus. If you try to take one product to market, it's easier than if you're trying to make a financial model and make a business plan, make a marketing plan with a whole slew of anything you can sell.
right. Yeah. What do you think about people finding mentors, coaches, like Score, for example? Are you familiar with Score? I
Mhm.
assume. Yeah. Well, before they start a company, rather than waiting until when they start the company.
I think it's important that you get mentors on your side because one of the most dangerous things I've seen for business owners is when they think in a vacuum. Because you will wake up at 3 a.m., you will have a great idea, you will have a lot of doubt, all of the things will happen, but you have to have a way to offload your thinking and get feedback on it. But I would say that you need to get those mentors early. But one of the challenges I've seen is I call it copy paste, you know, like advice. So many people say, well, I was working in a business that did X. I'm going to go do X a little bit better. And you try to copy and paste what you've seen work. It's natural. It's human nature. But
Yep.
what can often happen is your plan with copy and paste just adds, and you need a mentor to help you filter, to help you cut back, to help you edit. Because
Yes.
editing our own thinking is so hard. That's where coaches really shine. That's the job of a coach, to be outside of your brain. Because you can't be inside the system and think about the system at the same
Right.
time.
Yep.
That's just not how brains work.
Yeah. Correct. All right. So if you could, if 2025 Josh could go back the night before you opened Lantern as an agency in 2016,
Mhm.
right? And you sit down, you have your beverage of choice, and you put your arm around 2016 Josh, and go, listen, it's going to be a crazy ride. It all works out. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
But tomorrow, when you open the business, here's what you need to focus on first.
Yeah.
What would be here's what you need to focus on first?
So this is the advice that I give every day. This is what I do now. People need to find one core product that solves an actual need people are willing to pay for. And you have to pick a clear, narrow target audience that you actually have access to get to. Those two pieces are literally square one for having a business. Now, the other things that happen are you can build some ways that people can work with you, some baby steps, some front doors. That's the next piece that I would tell people is sometimes they're basically selling the big, the whole enchilada up front. It's too risky for new customers. But if you have a clear offer, a core offer, and you have a clear target audience, then you can choose, this is the problem I'm going to tell the world that I solve. This is the one outcome that I solve. Because if you can get that message out into the world and you actually have access to those types of customers, you can make a business work.
Yeah.
But often, because of that lack of clarity, we're saying, well, I solve a little bit. I solve marketing. I was like, well, what's the marketing problem? There's 1,000 problems in marketing. Who are you solving marketing for? Versus if you, for instance, if you started a business today and said, I do email marketing for people who run conferences and really need to connect with the prospects before they get their boots on the ground. How much clearer did I just a visual just popped into your head?
Yeah.
But that sounds so boring. You gotta admit to yourself that like as narrow as possible is where you should focus. If I was telling myself to start again.
Yeah. Yeah. Boring actually is generally pretty profitable as a rule. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Any other advice for an aspiring or new business owner?
The other piece of advice that most business owners need to hear is your ideas actually don't matter. And so much of why people start businesses is driven by your ego and your desire to be something, to be bigger. People want to matter. People want their impact to matter. They want that. That's okay. But people don't actually, potential customers don't care about you and your story. Very few people I know that start businesses can sell based on just their vision and their idea. Very few. But we look at those unicorns and we go, well, if I have a great idea and they had a great idea, then it'll work out. No, they had a ton of hard work and they pivoted 1,000 times and they only told you about the good ideas. They didn't tell you about the bad ideas.
Business Instagram.
Right.
Right.
So then what you have to do is you have to put your pride aside. And this is the marketing advice in this. Generating desire and demand is super expensive and super fuzzy. You have to find real problems that people wake up with and are willing to spend money on today. And those problems may seem they're either really specific or really boring. And our desire to feel unique and to feel different and to be a unicorn gets in the way and we get clouded by the idea. We think the idea has legs on its own. I'm like, you don't need to be better. For instance, let me give you a restaurant analogy. What's the difference between Taco Bell, Qdoba, and Chipotle?
Yeah.
They really do the same thing in the same wrappers. There's nothing super unique about it, but Taco Bell is obsessed with trying to repackage tacos in a fancy new way.
Yep.
And Qdoba wants to put all the toppings and all the queso. If you want queso, then you go to Qdoba. Why I use that analogy is they don't solve a unique problem. They do it in a way that solves a hunger problem. The problem is apparent. The problem is repeated. The problem comes back. And the problem at its core is super boring.
Yeah.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel to do it uniquely.
Right.
And so many times we think we're going to be the next crumble cookie or the next, Chipotle or the next big Apple. I'm like, don't go generate demand. Just solve it 10% different and solve it deeper. Because if you can solve a problem more deeply, then people will refer you and you can build a business out of it.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, that's a quick 29 minutes.
Yeah.
So, all right, we're going to wrap up. I think if people have questions about Josh or his business, there's going to be show notes over at defaultprofitable.com. They can learn more about them. And if you're listening, there's 3 ways you can help. You can subscribe, you can leave a review. You can do that wherever you're listening, and then you can share an episode. Josh, thanks for being a guest.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
No problem. Always fun to catch up. For our listeners, we'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, stay focused, keep working, stay profitable.